Hello and welcome to the latest featured tipster spot here at Tipstars. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart from SJP Golf Tips, who is coming off the back of a fantastic month in August. Hi Stuart.
Hello.
Perhaps you could start by just giving the listeners a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Stuart and I'm kind of the main person behind the SJP Golf Tips service, which is run through the Sports Betting Stars platform. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. And I suppose the obvious place to start, Stuart, is where did your interest in golf first originate?
Yeah, well, I've always kind of been very interested in all sports, really, from a very early age. I was kind of a jack of all trades in my childhood. Played rugby, football, cricket, tennis, and golf. But along the way, unfortunately, many injuries came my way in the contact sports and narrowed down the sports I was able to do. So I carried on with golf because no one could come on the golf course and tackle me and break a leg. So started from there, and it's sort of evolved as time's gone on, really.
And when did you realise that you could sort of mix your love of golf with the tipping side as well?
Well, it first came to my attention, I think, as with most things, as the internet got bigger and social media was in its infancy. My ears and I sort of pricked up as we got round to sort of Open Championship that comes to Britain every year, and you started to see adverts come on Sky Sports and things, and I sort of realised that A, you could bet on golf, and B, I knew what I was doing, so why wouldn't I bet on golf? The options were very limited when I first started. You're sort of thinking maybe back to 2008 was one of the first success stories that I had, and you were very much limited to sort of the Betfair exchange back then, so that there weren't very many markets, and you sort of had to take what you got given. But as each year's passed, bookmakers have got bigger, golf's become a bigger sport, a lot more money in it, and it's become a viable option, really, to make a long-standing profit for a calendar year. So I sort of stuck with me from 2008, and then it's rolled and got bigger and bigger ever since then, really.
Okay, so obviously, what would a normal week look like now for you when you're running SJP?
Yeah, so a normal week now, it is sort of a 7-day week. It's as with other sports, really. It never stops. It travels. It follows the sun round the globe. So the golf season used to only be maybe in the historical British summer, but now it follows around the world. So it never switches off. They finish one tournament and they go somewhere else and start another one. So my week would start probably on a Monday. These days, you're having a little look around social media, seeing if there's any mention of any injuries or new family expected. Are the players concentrating? Are they already in the location they're supposed to be in? Starting to sort of make some notes around perhaps what the bookmakers wouldn't necessarily spend the time doing. See if anyone's sort of playing through an injury or they've just had an operation and things like that. So I sort of keep a bit of a book as to what's going on in personal lives. And then I'd start to marry that up and start to have a look at what venues are coming up. You tend to get blocks throughout the calendar year of very similar type courses. So you'd get links courses, which are historically by seaside with a lot more wind involved. And then you'd go into sort of inner Europe and in the United States when they're a little bit more what we call parkland courses, which are tree lined, a lot more narrower than perhaps links golf, so you can get away with a little bit more once you've got the longer hitters who can get past some of the trouble that there used to be. And then I'd sort of move on to have a look at how these players are getting on at the moment. So you're looking at sort of marrying up a relationship between current form and venue form. And you're starting to sort of create your own sort of book and pricing events up yourself as to who you think, which types of players are going to have the best chance, which types of players can you maybe eliminate from the week's thinking. And then the final thing you'd be moving in on the Wednesday when you start to turn into a bit of a weatherman and you're having a look at the weather for the week as last minute as you can. Is it going to be windy in the morning, windy in an afternoon? who's that going to favour. You can start to split the field into two halves, and really you're narrowing down all the time. It's most unlike other sports, really, that you've got 156 potential outcomes every single week.
Yeah.
So to get one right, as I'm sure we'll go on to talk about, is no mean feat, and it does require a bit of patience and chalking down and sticking to your guns and your gut feeling and what methods have worked for you over a number of years now.
Excellent. And do you watch the tournaments from start to finish? Do you get involved to that degree?
Absolutely, yeah. So again, in this day and age, we're very fortunate with Sky Sports that most often than not, the bulk of the year you've got all your European stuff going on in our British times that are amenable, and then when you finish that and you're happy that you've not had enough, then straight away they go over to America and that's on TV. So. And if you get any interference from family saying you're watching it too much, you've even got Sky Go you can slightly have down one corner of a sofa.
Excellent. So obviously there's a lot of work goes into what you do, obviously, as I would expect. And one of the questions I hear a lot from potential members is why you provide the information in your service rather than just using it for your own benefit. Would you like to explain that a little bit to them?
Yeah. So I suppose that's twofold, really. And I'm sure the answers may be similar to previous callers you may have had on. But first and foremost, as time's gone on and successes have come my way, one of the unfortunate things with the industry is they soon realise who they don't want to be gambling and who they do. So I've had to overcome numerous, I suppose, what you'd call restrictions myself. So, for instance, there's some activity that I wanted to do this week, and the various different platforms that I'm still allowed to be on, I can't get much more than 74 pence I'm capped at. So there's that side of it to sort of maintain capitalising on your own knowledge. And then the second thing really is just goodwill. It started with a close circle of friends, and they always sort of asked me, what do you think's going to happen, or who would you be backing? And they were very happy, and I just thought, why not open this up to the wider public, see what they think. Went about creating my own website, which I did to the best of my ability to sort of showcase what I did and what went into it, which at one point in time, in and around 2015-16, I had around 24,000 visits to this site that I'd created just myself. And then it sort of evolved from that. The various people in the industry began to see the product that I was offering and contacted me and wanted to be a part of it. And it just grew to what it is today, sort of access for anyone who wants to be part of it.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a very pertinent point there in terms of restrictions. And, I hear from a lot of punters, not just from golf, but across all sorts of sports, where getting any bet on at times is difficult, and being restricted to pence per bet is not unusual now. Do you find that Betfair Exchange offers an opportunity to follow your service?
It does offer an opportunity to follow the service, yes, and in many ways it's almost still back to what I did in 2008 onwards myself. In many ways, a case could be made that it's probably the best way to follow my service, because as we know, you're betting against other people. You're not dictated to by bookmakers what odds they are. The only reason kind of we don't feel we push that a little bit more than we do is we feel it's probably restricting people to force them to use one bookmaker. We like to open it up to all bookmakers, really, so people can have a wider access. But yeah, certainly the Betfair Exchange is a good way, and we're always kind of trying to evolve still and improve what we do offer. And one thing that we're sort of trialing at the moment with a view to maybe implementing next golf season is maybe betting not to win as well, which can be quite profitable. So you're opening up what we touched on before, where you're having to pick one golfer out of 156 who will win. you can better that ratio more in your favour by saying, well, I'm absolutely sure this week that this person won't win. You can maybe start to cover losses and at least equal out your stake, so the losses become less in the periods when you're not getting that 156 every week.
Yeah.
You can maybe get your stake money back and break even and wait for better things by having 2 or 3 that won't win.
Yeah, and I think that's a good time to talk about losing runs, which accompany every service I've looked at. They're not unique to anyone. They happen. They're part and parcel of the whole plan of making a profit. It is a long-term investment, and people are very quick to jump out of a service as soon as it hits a bad run. Now, I know we're talking on the back of you having, I think it was 3 tournament winners in August, which obviously was a fantastic month. But the nature of golf betting is that there will be long losing runs. You will have months where you won't make money, potentially 2 or 3 months on the trot. How do you cope with that yourself when you're into one of those runs where nothing seems to happen?
Yeah, it's you've summed it up well there, really, and I suppose that we wouldn't be having this conversation now if it wasn't for last month. But that was definitely one of the best months I've ever done, really. But like you say, it's a fickle industry. As soon as people pay for something, they expect something back, potentially rightly so. But that's where I try and offer a little bit of an above and beyond service. I do put detailed descriptions in of what my thinking is to sort of share my knowledge as best I can, so people can maybe begin to learn as well as earn, if you pardon the rhyme there. So it isn't, if you do join our service, you don't simply get a put this bet on, thank you very much, see you next week. You do get detailed description of what the thinking is and why you're doing it, which I do feel is received quite well. I think people do feel they're getting quite a lot of content for that. The losing runs, as you say, it is very difficult. The easy expression would be that the odds aren't in your favour when you're 1 in 156. But the good side of that is that the actual betting odds do tend to reflect that. And as evidenced sort of last month, it doesn't take very much to get you making quite a bit of profit. As you mentioned there, we've just come off the back of 1 month, and we had 3 tournament winners in a row, coupled with a first round leader. Now, all of a sudden, you've made over 100 points worth of profit there, and you've only had four bets. So that doesn't really replicate in many other sports either, when you're betting every day. So it does take a certain person to understand that. You use the correct word with sort of investment. A lot of the dialogue that I have in person or maybe over social media is, you look at it and treat it the same as you would do if you were putting some capital in a bank, and you wouldn't take that out straight away. You'd leave it in there for at least a year. The stocks and shares go up, stocks and shares go down, and you can't really judge them in a month or 2 months. You've got to wait a period of at least a year or two to see the bigger picture. And golf's very much like that. It is difficult, but you just have to put trust in yourself. I've done this for far too long now, and I've been doing it for many years in a row to know that it's not a coincidence that the last 4 years we've made over 100 points per calendar year. It's not been a one-off, and you just carry on regardless, really, and trust that it does come right.
Yeah, and it is this whole question of long-term view, isn't it? I mean, this is where so many punters miss out on the opportunity to benefit from following a tipster, because they don't get their head round the fact that it's not an overnight success. There is no get-rich-quick scheme. It is a long-term investment, and you have to trust the person you're following.
Yeah, you've got to do your research to make sure that the person is who they say they are. You've got to do your sort of due diligence and maybe try and get yourself on some sort of trial. We do offer 2 weeks worth of free content, so at least people can sort of try before they buy. We do try and look after the customers as much as we can in that respect, to give them the opportunity to put their trust rightly in what we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of a free offer when it's there. There's nothing like trialing a system. And as you said, the write-ups themselves are fantastic. So you do get benefit for your free period, whatever you do with it. What piece of advice, I think I know the answer to this one from what you said previously, but what piece of advice would you give to someone joining SJP to get the most from their membership?
I think the advice I'd give, it's very easy to say patience, but I'd just set yourself a bit of a goal, and just say that I am going to commit to this service for X amount of months. I know that it's going to cost me this in order to do it, and see it through. Like you say, there's been far too many instances. People only need to look back through the results which we've got on our website right the way back to January of 2015. You'll see there's been every year there's been 3 or 4 months of losses in a row, but it only takes 1 or 2 months because the gains so far outweigh the losses that we've had so many customers, come on a bit of tongue in cheek and sort of say, I timed that well, didn't I? That they might have left on the 4th month of losses, and then the 5th month, not only would they have got all their losses back, but they would have doubled the money that they'd lost. And
Yeah,
that is golf down to a T, really. Again,
pardon the pun. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have got to see it out for a full season, and even golfers themselves, there's massive parallels with the sport itself and the actual betting on it. You will not get a golfer who plays well all year. They come in fits and starts as well. You look at the sport itself. You've probably got the best player in the world at the moment. Would be a strong case to be made for Brooks Koepka. He's won 3 majors in the last 3 years. I think 4 majors in the last 3 years. But I wouldn't bet on him now until in the middle of next year, because he won't play well in the off season. He's got other priorities, and his form will dip. So
yeah,
it's about getting the timing right of these players, and again with the service kind of reflects the sport in general. Really, you're not going to be 100% for 12 months of the year. If it was that easy, we'd all be doing it, and nobody would work.
absolutely. Well, we wouldn't, because of course the bookmakers would never allow that. But there you go. Have you got a most memorable experience in your time as a tipster? Is there one bet or one period that really stands out for you?
There is one particular week, yeah, and I'll probably never forget it. I think it was 2016, may even be 2017. So within the last 3 or 4 years, this was back when I had my own website and Twitter feed before Sports Betting Stars existed, and it was when I was a little bit more of a cavalier tipster. I'm sure we're going to talk about how other advice I've got within tipping, but I sort of was a little bit more on my own at that point and just doing the best that I thought I could do. I perhaps didn't have the knowledge base then of the wider tipping industry as I do now, and I used to dabble a lot more in multiples. So as we've established already, it's hard enough finding the winner of one event each week, let alone more than one.
Yeah,
But I dabbled a lot in cross-tournament multiples, sort of like patents, which might include 3 different events all at the same time. And I was lucky enough one week to actually land the 2 winners at the same time. And I was actually away on holiday, and I'd forgotten that this was going on. I was in holiday mode. And then all of a sudden, around the same sort of time, sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock at one European afternoon, my phone was just going absolutely balmy, and I was wondering what was going on. And we were fortunate enough to land Luke Donald, who'd won the recent Scandinavian Masters that's just gone, in the same bet as Ryan Fox, who's now an established European Tour player. He just won the season-ending Challenge Tour event, both at odds in and around 33 to 1. So it created about a 600 to 1 double, which at the time I was having traffic of around 20,000 hits on my free best of my ability website I created.
yeah.
So that was probably the first indication that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, not one that would come along that often, so to be enjoyed
No,
when it does,
no, yeah.
definitely. Obviously, you mentioned in there that when you started out, you didn't have the knowledge and the experience of the tipping world so much. Have you had one piece of advice that you've received as a tipster, and who did that come from?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I don't mind saying where it came from. So I'm quite good friends both on and out of the tipping world with Russell Blair Racing. I don't know if you've had any
Yes,
on with
yes, I
him.
know Russell. Yep.
And his piece of advice really was twofold, and it was always trust your gut, and then secondly, you need to create a strict system in terms of the actual outlay and expenditure of your service. You know, as I mentioned and alluded to then, I was a little bit more free with my outlay, very much sort of speculate to accumulate type mentality, and it didn't work as well as it works now, because each month I might be spending or outlaying 50 points and then 70 points and then back down to 20 points. Each event was different, and it was hit and miss, and it worked to an extent, but it wasn't fit for a paid service that we offer now, and being able to sort of combine the expertise we have on sports betting stars. And now I have real structure in terms of the prices. Anything under 20 to 1, the research suggests you would back win only for long-term profit. No each way betting on that, which I've learned as time's gone on. And 1 point each way for each way terms over 20 to 1. And then as prices increase, you can sort of continue that trend as prices go on. So you've got a lot more control of what goes on, and over time that really has begun to pay dividends with when the wins come along. You've got them backed accordingly to your system. So I think a strict point system really would be the big piece of advice that I've implemented.
Excellent. And obviously, you've had a good few years now in the tipping world. Is there one thing that you've seen that happens in the tipping world that you would like to change?
I think we've touched on it already, really. I think you can't control who joins the service, and similarly who stays and who goes. I think the tipping service and people like myself, we spend that much time for the benefit of others. I think really is just, it can be fickle, and for every one message that you get of congratulations when everything's going fantastic, you're probably getting between 5 and 10 not so nice ones when things aren't going so well. So I think maybe a more even acceptance of good and bad for the hard-working tipsters.
Yeah, and I think that's an education thing for punters, isn't it? As much as anything, it's actually understanding what does go into running a service. It's not someone who just sends an email out once a day or once a week. There's a whole lot that goes into arriving at those tips. And that we all know that the industry has got a bad reputation, and there are people out there who give it that reputation, unfortunately. But the genuine guys who run really good professional services, it is a profession for them. They do treat it as a role, a job, and something that they're proud to do.
Yeah, no, I've benefited a lot from that, really. I'm very grateful to the likes of Russell and the guys that head up us at Sports Betting Stars. We've really got a great group of expertise there that help each other along.
Yeah, no, that's great. Going to move away a little bit from the tipping world, just touch on a few personal issues for yourself. Obviously, you spend a lot of time watching and reading about golf. Do you get a chance to watch any other sports? And if so, what and who do you like?
I do, yeah. I don't think I'll ever be able to get rid of my sporting interests, but despite me trying very hard to get rid of my big football interest, growing up, well, I always will be, but Manchester United are a big thing for me. I've been a season ticket holder from the age of 5, and they're very, very close to my heart. So the last few years have been quite difficult to keep a smile with regards to that.
Yeah.
Also, cricket, very interested in. I've enjoying the Ashes this time round, keeping an interest in that. And I really have a love-hate relationship with horse racing. I very, very much enjoy it, and I'm enjoying just watching it now. I think I don't necessarily feel the need to gamble on the horse racing like perhaps I used to. I just enjoy the watching the festivities and challenging environment that they work in. I'm big into horses as well. I used to horse ride growing up, so I just enjoy that for what it is.
Excellent. And moving back to your own personal golfing prowess, are you going to share your handicap with us at this stage?
Yeah, more than welcome to. In actual fact, my handicap was taken away from me, so I am a professional golfer myself, and I'm just coming up for 10 years doing that. So when you are fortunate enough to turn professional, you relinquish your amateur status and no longer possess a handicap. So I am also a professional golfer myself.
Okay. And holes in one, have you been lucky enough or skillful enough, should I say, skillful enough for a hole in one?
Interesting story behind that. I have had a hole in one, but due to the nature of the hole that I had it in, I unfortunately didn't get to see the ball enter the hole. It was a blind, an undulated green that meant that the flag was at the bottom of the 3-tiered green, and you couldn't see that tier from the tee. So I had an idea that it was going to be close, but got up there to find the ball in the hole.
Well, I have to share my story with you. Very similar. I've never had a hole in one, but I have actually had an albatross.
Oh, that's even better.
I didn't see it go in the hole because it was a long way away.
Yeah.
We spent ages searching round the green for the ball before someone wandered over to the hole and found it in there. So never had a hole in one, had an albatross, but didn't see it. So there you go. And favourite courses? Do you have a favourite course that you've played?
I do, yeah. I've got a couple dotted around the world, really. I've been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit within the golf industry. In terms of the UK, I'm fortunate enough to be based in the northwest, which really is probably the golfing heart of England. So one of my favourites in this area is Formby, over on the Liverpool coast, Formby Golf Club.
Okay.
I'm not far from Royal Lytham and St Anne's Golf Club myself as well, which is certainly up there. But my favourite golf course, if I had to choose one, is called Monterey on the Portuguese-Spanish border, designed by Jack Nicklaus, and it's one to keep your ears out for that, because that's got Ryder Cup written all over it in the next 10, 12 years, I think.
Okay. Well, you heard that here first. So, it's been fantastic talking to you today, Stuart. I must say, it's been really interesting. I think we've got a really good idea about the person behind the service. I'm sure we could talk for a lot longer about golf and football and cricket and all the other good things that are going on. But I'd like to say thank you on behalf of Tipstars and our listeners for taking the time to speak to us today. And we'll wish you every success in the coming months with SJP Golf Tips.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me on, and good luck to all the listeners with all their bets.
Thank you. And remember, everyone, you can read more about Stuart's service on tipstars.tips on the featured tipster page, and look out for all our other information. Until next time, bye for now.